Welcome to another spine-chilling tale from the Nightmare Maestro. Tonight's story reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous predators aren't the ones mounted on walls. They're the ones who put them there. And after hearing this story, you'll never look at a trophy room the same way again. The classified ad had seemed simple enough. Private hunting lease available. 2,000 acres. Pristine Montana wilderness. Serious inquiries only. Kevin had responded immediately, desperate to secure new hunting grounds after his previous lease fell through unexpectedly. His hands trembled slightly as he steered his truck down the winding dirt road, more from anticipation than the rutted terrain. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the dense pine forest, creating strange, shifting patterns that drew his eye from one dark space to another. The road opened onto a clearing where a sprawling ranch house stood against the backdrop of snow-capped mountains. At first glance, it appeared to be a typical Montana hunting lodge, weathered cedar siding, a wraparound porch lined with rocking chairs, split log stairs leading to heavy wooden doors. But something about the trophy room windows caught Kevin's attention. Unlike the rest of the house, which wore its age openly in graying wood and rusted fixtures, these windows gleamed with an almost surgical cleanliness. They stood out like new eyes in an old skull, reflecting the setting sun with an unnatural brilliance. Through those pristine panes, Kevin could see dozens of mounted animals. A massive elk dominated one wall, its rack spreading like gnarled branches. Below it, a wolf stood frozen mid-snarl, its posture suggesting it had been caught in the instant before a killing lunge. Each trophy was positioned with expert precision under what appeared to be museum-quality lighting. Even from outside, Kevin could tell these weren't typical hunting lodge displays. The attention to detail, the dynamic poses, the theatrical lighting, it all spoke of an obsession that went beyond mere pride in the hunt. As Kevin killed the engine, a trophy buck's head turned slightly to track his movement. He blinked hard, knowing it had to be a trick of the light, yet unable to shake the unsettling sensation that the glass eyes held more awareness than they should. The silence that fell when his truck's engine died seemed absolute, broken only by the soft crunch of gravel under his boots as he stepped out. The air carried the sharp scent of pine and something else, something clinical that reminded him of his last dental appointment. The property owner, James Whittaker, emerged from the front door with the fluid grace of a practiced hunter. Everything about him seemed precisely calculated, from his carefully groomed salt and pepper beard to his spotless hunting boots. His handshake was firm but lingered a heartbeat too long, his smile practiced but never touching his pale blue eyes. Those eyes studied Kevin with an intensity that made him feel less like a potential business partner and more like prey being sized up. The house's interior was a study in controlled contradiction. The entryway and living room displayed all the expected touches: rustic furniture, hunting photographs, vintage rifles mounted on the walls. But beneath the typical lodge sense of gun oil and leather lurked that same medicinal smell Kevin had noticed outside, stronger now. It carried notes of antiseptic and something else he couldn't quite identify, something that made the back of his teeth itch. Whittaker led the tour with practiced efficiency, his voice a smooth baritone as he detailed the property's features. But Kevin found himself increasingly distracted by the hunting photographs that lined the walls. Each showed Whittaker alone with his kills, spanning what must have been decades of hunting. The images were compositionally perfect, almost artificial in their precision, and in every single one, Whittaker wore that same practiced smile that never reached his eyes, standing over increasingly exotic and unusual prey. Most disturbing was the progression. Kevin noticed the animals in the later photos seemed to display increasingly humanoid features in their poses and expressions, though he told himself this had to be his imagination. The trophy room's entrance marked a stark departure from the lodge's rustic aesthetic. A heavy steel door, more appropriate for a bank vault than a hunting lodge, dominated the end of the main hallway. Its surface bore no handle, only a sophisticated keypad and what appeared to be a biometric scanner. Whittaker's fingers danced across the keypad with practiced efficiency, his movements suggesting this was a ritual performed countless times before. The door's seal broke with a hydraulic hiss, releasing a blast of climate-controlled air that carried that medicinal scent to an almost overwhelming intensity. The room beyond was a cathedral to the hunt, but one that seemed to worship something darker than mere sport. Museum-quality lighting created islands of perfect illumination for each trophy, while leaving the spaces between in calculated shadow. The temperature was a constant 62 degrees, maintained by a low mechanical hum that seemed to vibrate at an almost subsonic frequency. Each mount was a masterpiece of taxidermy, displaying impossible levels of detail and preservation. A wolf caught mid-snarl, its muscles bunched and tensed beneath fur that seemed to ripple in the controlled lighting. An elk with its head thrown back, mouth open in what might have been a bugle, but looked more like a scream of agony. A mountain lion crouched on a replica cliff face, its face twisted in an expression that seemed far too complex for a mere animal. Each creature's eyes held an unsettling depth, reflecting the light with an almost liquid quality that suggested something more than glass. As they ventured deeper into the trophy room, Kevin's professional curiosity began to overcome his unease. As an experienced hunter, he noticed technical aspects of the mounts that defied explanation. The cuts and seams were impossibly precise, the preservation beyond anything he'd seen in even the most expensive taxidermy. The poses captured not just movement but emotion, suggesting a knowledge of anatomy that went far beyond traditional mounting techniques. Small details began to accumulate like evidence at a crime scene. Stainless steel drains were set into the floor at regular intervals, their purpose unclear, but their design suggesting frequent use. The air handling system was industrial grade, with multiple filtration stages visible behind subtle vents. Every few feet, barely noticeable tracks in the ceiling could accommodate some kind of mobile equipment, though their exact purpose remained unclear. The room's back wall housed another steel door, identical to the entrance but larger. Through its small window, Kevin glimpsed what appeared to be a medical suite. Surgical lights hung from articulated arms above what looked like a modified dental chair, its familiar form distorted by thick leather straps and unusual attachments. Stainless steel cabinets lined the walls, their contents hidden but suggesting a purpose far removed from traditional taxidermy. The medicinal smell was overwhelming here, mixing with something metallic and familiar, the coppery scent of fresh blood. The truth revealed itself in subtle stages, like a photograph slowly developing in darkroom chemicals. Kevin noticed the first real evidence in what appeared to be a preserved bear's hide, a partially hidden tattoo, unmistakably human in origin. Once seen, it couldn't be unseen, and suddenly every trophy in the room took on a new and horrifying context. His eyes darted from mount to mount, really seeing them for the first time. The wolf had gold fillings visible behind its snarling lips. The elk bore traces of surgical scars beneath its fur. A mountain lion had an oddly human-like musculature, its posed form suggesting a body type more suited to walking upright than on four legs. Each mount was a masterpiece of biological modification and surgical artistry, blending human and animal features with a precision that spoke of years of practice and refinement. Whitaker stood between Kevin and the exit now, that practiced smile finally reaching his eyes as he began to explain his life's work. His voice took on the tone of a proud artist sharing his technique, describing how he'd learned to blend features, how each piece had taught him something new about the intersection of human and animal anatomy. He spoke of his need for a partner, someone who understood the artistry of the hunt, who could help him expand his collection. As he talked, his hand rested casually on a control panel near the door. The steel entrance sealed with a decisive click, and the subsonic hum of the climate control system took on a different tone, one that made Kevin's consciousness begin to fade around the edges. As Kevin's vision swam back into focus, he found himself strapped to the modified dental chair he'd glimpsed earlier. The surgical lights above cast harsh shadows across Whitaker's face as he moved methodically around the room, preparing his tools with the practiced ease of a surgeon. The walls, now visible in their entirety, displayed photographs documenting his process images that showed the gradual transformation of his victims from human to hybrid specimens. Each photo was meticulously labeled with dates and technical notes, creating a grotesque timeline of Whitaker's evolving artistry. Whitaker spoke as he worked, his voice taking on the measured cadence of a college professor delivering a favorite lecture. He explained how he'd perfected his techniques over decades, beginning with simple taxidermy before graduating to more ambitious projects. His first hybrid, he recalled with almost paternal pride, had been a failed experiment, the human elements too obvious, the animal features crudely grafted. But each subsequent piece had taught him something new about the delicate art of biological fusion. The room itself was a testament to his dedication, a fully equipped surgical suite disguised as a processing room. Specialized tools, many of them custom-made, lined the walls in perfect order. A complex ventilation system hummed quietly, designed to handle the unique challenges of his work. The air was thick with a smell of antiseptic and preserved tissue, underlaid with the metallic tang of fresh blood from his most recent project, still hidden behind a plastic curtain in the corner. As Kevin tested his restraints, his eyes caught glimpses of notebooks filled with detailed anatomical drawings. Pages of careful calculations and surgical diagrams showed the evolution of Whitaker's technique. Some sketches displayed familiar faces missing hunters, whose disappearances had made brief headlines before being forgotten in the vast wilderness of Montana. Each face was annotated with notes about bone structure, muscle density, and potential hybrid combinations. Kevin recognized one face from a missing persons poster he'd seen just last month at the local diner. Whitaker methodically arranged his surgical instruments on a steel tray as he shared his vision for Kevin's transformation. He had noticed Kevin's broad shoulders, his strong runner's build, and had already begun sketching concepts for a magnificent deer hybrid. The antlers would be real, harvested from a prize buck, grafted to the skull through a process he'd spent years perfecting. The muscle structure would be enhanced, but kept recognizably human, a commentary, he explained, on the relationship between hunter and prey. His gloved fingers traced the planned incision lines on Kevin's face as he described how he would reshape the jaw, blend the neck muscles with those of a mature buck, adjust the eye sockets to accommodate the larger, more expressive eyes he preferred for his pieces. Each modification was described with the precision of a master craftsman, his voice carrying the same passion an artist might use to describe a masterpiece in progress. But as Whitaker turned to administer the sedative, his foot caught on a slightly raised drain cover. In that moment of imbalance, Kevin saw his one chance. Hours of bow hunting had strengthened his arms beyond what the restraints were designed to hold. With a surge of desperate strength, he broke free of the loosened right strap, grabbed a nearby scalpel, and in one fluid motion learned from field dressing countless deer, opened Whitaker from navel to sternum. The would-be artist staggered back, his carefully ordered world dissolving into chaos. As his lifeblood spilled across the immaculate floor, Whitaker's expression held more surprise than pain, the look of a predator discovering too late that it had become prey. His final words were not a scream, but a whispered observation about the beautiful symmetry of his end. As he collapsed, his hand brushed against his journal, leaving a crimson smear across pages of unfinished designs, creatures that would now never join his collection. Kevin stumbled out of the processing room, through the trophy room where dozens of glass eyes watched his escape. Some seemed to hold accusation in their gaze, others relief. As he fled into the gathering darkness, he could have sworn he heard something like gratitude in the subsonic hum of the climate control system, as if Whitaker's collection was grateful to have witnessed their creator's final contribution to his own twisted art. The heavy steel door sealed behind him with a decisive click, entombing Whitaker among his life's work, becoming the final piece in his own macabre collection. Subscribe for more chilling tales from the Nightmare Maestro.